There is a quiet confidence in a person who doesn't feel the need to explain themselves at every turn. Silence reveals mastery. It demonstrates that you're not seeking validation. You already have it within. When you master the art of controlled speech, you begin to separate yourself from the masses. You step into a class of your own because you've learned something most people never will. Your words lose value the more recklessly you spend them. Speech should be currency, not loose change. The moment you realize that every word you speak either builds your reputation or chips away at it, you'll become far more intentional with how you communicate. Think of how many people talk their way out of opportunities, out of relationships, out of respect. They try to impress, to prove, to dominate the conversation. And in doing so, they reveal their weakness, not their strength. There is a distinct power in being unpredictable. When others don't know what you're thinking, when they can't anticipate your next move, you gain a psychological edge. Controlled speech allows you to hold that advantage. It keeps others on their toes. While they're talking, trying to read you, trying to figure you out, you're observing. You're studying. You're gathering information, valuable information they're carelessly giving away in their desire to be heard. You see, the more you listen, the more you learn. And the more you learn, the better your actions become. Those who rush to speak rarely pause to reflect. But those who speak sparingly usually speak wisely. They wait until their thoughts are clear. They don't offer opinions on everything. They don't engage in idle gossip or frivolous debate. Instead, they speak with intention. And when they do speak, people listen. If you want to win big in life, you must learn to value your words like gold. Silence doesn't mean passivity. It means power under control. It means knowing that every time you open your mouth, you're either reinforcing your strength or exposing your weakness. Many people try to dominate rooms with volume, but those who truly dominate do so with presence. And presence doesn't require noise. It requires self-mastery. Every time you feel the urge to jump into a conversation to defend yourself, to argue your point, or to prove something, pause. Ask yourself, does this serve my greater goal, or is it just my ego looking for air? Because the truth is, most people talk to soothe their insecurities. They talk to be noticed. But when you're truly secure, you don't need to prove anything. You let your silence and your results speak for you. Think about the last time someone spoke little but left a lasting impact. You remember them, don't you? That's the effect of controlled speech. It creates mystery. It leaves space for others to lean in. It gives weight to every word you do say. That's how influence is built, not by flooding the room with noise, but by commanding attention with intentional, disciplined expression. Controlled speech also protects you. When you're selective with your words, you're less likely to say things you'll regret, to reveal plans prematurely, or to dilute your power with unnecessary talk. The man who always speaks his mind may sound bold, but he also shows his hand. And in any game worth playing, especially the game of life, you don't win by showing all your cards too soon. It takes strength to remain quiet when others are speaking. It takes even more strength to remain calm when others are provoking you. But the strongest version of yourself doesn't react. He chooses when and how to respond. That's the mark of true power. And when you become known as someone who only speaks when it matters, your words carry a weight that others cannot replicate. Controlled speech trains your mind. It teaches discipline not only in communication, but in thought. The mind and the tongue are closely linked. When you gain mastery over one, the other follows. By speaking less, you give yourself space to think more. And it's those well-formed thoughts, those carefully curated ideas that translate into effective action and lasting results. People may underestimate you at first when you're quiet. Let them. In fact, welcome it. Let your silence be the calm before the storm. While they talk, you build. While they brag, you prepare. And when the time is right, when speaking becomes necessary, speak with such precision and purpose that your words land like a hammer of truth. That's the kind of presence that shifts rooms, that shapes destinies. Don't confuse silence with inaction. Silence is often the very foundation of the most powerful actions. It's the stillness before the breakthrough, the quiet before the win. And if you can learn to wield that silence, to respect it, to let it mold you into someone who doesn't need to speak to prove their worth, then you've taken the first step toward true greatness. Because in this world of noise, the one who masters silence wins. If you want to win, really win, you must understand this truth. Action is the only language that produces results. No one ever succeeded by merely talking about their goals. Results are reserved for the doers, the ones who let their work speak on their behalf. While others are busy performing for attention, the wise are working in silence. They're building, improving, pushing forward, quietly but relentlessly. And when their results finally show, they speak louder than 1,000 speeches ever could. It's tempting to talk about your dreams. It gives a temporary feeling of accomplishment. It makes you feel as if you're already moving forward. But don't mistake conversation for progress. There's no victory in the declaration. The win comes in the discipline, the grind, the repetition of unseen effort. That's where success is born, not in the noise, but in the quiet labor no one applauds. Those who understand this don't need to broadcast their every move. They don't seek approval. They're not chasing applause. They're too focused on doing the work. And because of that, they start to move differently. They rise while others sleep. They study while others scroll. They persist while others complain. And slowly their actions carve a path to success so undeniable that even their critics are forced to take notice. There's a reason the most powerful people in the world are often the least vocal. They know the power of restraint. They don't need to convince anyone of their direction because they're too busy living it. You can tell where someone is headed not by what they say, but by what they do consistently. Consistency is the real currency of achievement, not intention, not wishful thinking, but repeated action that compounds over time. And let me tell you this, when you begin to truly commit to your actions, people will notice, not because you told them, but because your results walk into the room before you do. That's the kind of presence that makes an impact. That's the kind of power that doesn't fade. Because while talkers gain attention for a moment, doers gain respect for a lifetime. You must become someone who executes in silence and lets success do the talking. Don't waste your energy trying to convince others of what you're capable of. Show them. Show them with your habits. Show them with your persistence. Show them by becoming the person others said you'd never be without ever needing to say a word. That's how real power moves. When others are boasting about their plans, you be the one making progress. When they're announcing their goals, you be the one achieving yours. Let them underestimate you. Let them talk. And while they're doing that, you keep moving forward, step by step, quietly stacking the kind of results that no amount of talking could ever equal. One of the most dangerous traps is the need to be seen. That desire to be recognized before the work is done, to be celebrated for the idea instead of the outcome. But recognition means nothing without results. What's the use of being known if you're not known for producing? What's the value in being visible if you've built nothing worth seeing? You don't need validation when you have vision. Let the vision guide your actions, not the opinions of others. Because when you begin to build something real, something solid, you'll find that the approval you once craved loses its grip on you. You'll become grounded in purpose, anchored in discipline. And that is the type of energy that cannot be faked. It only comes through action. The beauty of doing the work is that it changes you. Every task you complete, every hour you invest, every challenge you overcome, it shapes your character. It sharpens your focus. You become stronger, wiser, more capable. And you begin to develop a quiet confidence that doesn't need to shout. You walk differently. You think differently. And you begin to attract opportunities not because you chased them, but because you became the kind of person who draws them in. That's why it's so important to commit to action even when no one is watching, especially when no one is watching, because that's when character is forged. That's when integrity is tested. It's easy to work hard when people are praising you, but true discipline shows up in the dark when it's just you, the goal, and the grind. That's when your future is being written. Don't fall into the illusion that speaking about something is equal to working on it. Don't let your mouth write checks your habits can't cash. If you truly believe in your vision, prove it by what you do daily. Let every step you take be a quiet vote for the future you say you want. And soon enough, you won't have to convince anyone of your value. They'll see it. They'll feel it. So speak less of what you're going to do it. Let your results be your reputation. Let your work ethic write your story. Talk less, execute more, because that's the real difference between those who dream and those who win. There's a reason the most influential leaders, negotiators, and visionaries choose their words with care. They understand the value of silence, not as absence, but as presence. Silence creates space. It slows things down. It makes people lean in. And in that space, you gain control, not over others directly, but over the flow of the interaction. When you're silent, you're not reacting. You're observing. You're thinking. You're gathering information that others are carelessly giving away. In most conversations, people aren't really listening. They're just waiting for their turn to speak. But when you train yourself to be fully present, To truly listen, you start to notice things others miss. You hear what's not being said, you see patterns, weaknesses, inconsistencies. You begin to understand the motives behind the words, and that gives you an edge, a silent edge. Think of silence not as a void, but as a strategy. Every pause you take, every moment you choose to hold back instead of jumping in, communicates something. It tells people you're not easily rattled, that you're thoughtful, that you have control over your emotions and your thoughts. That's rare. And what's rare becomes powerful. When everyone else is quick to speak, the person who stays quiet becomes a mystery. And mystery draws attention. It creates curiosity. And curiosity gives you leverage. People are drawn to those they can't figure out. The more you reveal, the more predictable you become. But when you speak less and observe more, you become unreadable. And in any situation, whether it's business, leadership, negotiation, or even personal relationships, being unreadable gives you control. You get to choose what to reveal, when to reveal it, and how much impact it makes. That's influence. Silence also gives you emotional clarity. When you don't rush to respond, you give yourself the gift of time. Time to process, time to detach from ego, time to respond with precision instead of impulse. Most people destroy their credibility not because they lack knowledge, but because they react emotionally, speak too soon, and say too much. They give away their position, their insecurities, their intentions, all because they haven't learned to sit with the discomfort of silence. But if you can master that discomfort, step into a different league. You become calm when others are flustered. You become deliberate when others are reckless. And slowly people begin to look to you not just for answers, but for direction. Because in a world where everyone is shouting, the one who speaks rarely and with impact becomes a source of strength. And let's be clear, silence doesn't mean weakness. It doesn't mean passivity. In fact, it often takes far more strength to stay silent than it does to speak. Anyone can blurt out the first thing that comes to mind. But to wait, to watch, to hold your ground while others are losing theirs, that's power. Silent power. It's the kind of power that doesn't demand attention but commands it effortlessly. When you master silence, you begin to influence outcomes without force. You guide conversations without domination. You lead without needing to control. Because influence isn't about being the loudest. It's about being the most aligned in thought, in presence, in energy. And silence helps you stay aligned. It keeps you grounded. It gives you space to choose the right words at the right time. So when you do speak, people know it matters. In every situation, ask yourself, is my silence saying more than my words ever could? Often the answer is yes. Silence can express confidence, patience, disapproval, strength, even love without a single sound. It forces others to pay attention. It makes people reflect. It shifts the energy of a room. And most importantly, it puts you in control of your communication instead of being controlled by it. You begin to realize that silence, when used intentionally, becomes a language of its own. You speak with your presence, your posture, your stillness. You learn how to read others, not just by what they say, but by what they try to hide between their words. And the more you learn to read people, the more influence you naturally develop. Because people trust those who listen. People follow those who don't just talk, but understand. Now, this doesn't mean you never speak. It means you speak less, but better. You choose words like a craftsman chooses tools. You speak when you've considered the outcome. You speak when it adds value. And when you do, your words carry weight. They land with impact. Because people have learned that when you open your mouth, it's worth hearing. You can win arguments by not engaging in them. You can win respect by never needing to ask for it. You can win loyalty by understanding people better than they understand themselves. And all of that begins with silence, with listening, with watching, with letting others reveal themselves first while you remain composed, grounded, clear. And over time, as you master this way of moving, you begin to experience a shift. Opportunities come your way, not because you begged for them, but because you created space for them. People begin to seek your insight, not because you offer it freely, but because you've shown that when you do, it changes the game. That's what happens when you use silence as strategy, not just reaction. You stop chasing influence and you start embodying it. So the next time you're in a room full of noise, remember this: you don't have to compete to be heard. Your silence already speaks volumes. See, the problem most people face isn't lack of intelligence or talent, it's noise, mental clutter, constant distraction, inner chatter that never stops. They're talking all day long, both out loud and in their heads, and they never stop long enough to think deeply. But when you learn to quiet the noise, When you discipline your thoughts and stop reacting to everything around you, you gain access to a level of clarity that most people never reach. And with that clarity comes power. You can't lead others until you lead yourself. You can't direct the course of your life until you can direct your thoughts. Most people think they're in control, but if you were to listen to their minds, you'd hear fear, doubt, comparison, excuses on repeat. They speak negatively to themselves without even realizing it. And then they wonder why their lives don't move forward. But the truth is simple. Your outer world will always reflect your inner world. If your thoughts are undisciplined, so will your results be. Silence is the space where transformation happens. Not the silence around you, but the silence within you, the stillness you create when you stop entertaining every thought, every impulse, every distraction. When you stop needing to talk and start learning how to think. And not just think, but think with intention. Think with vision. 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 Think with purpose. This is the difference between living by design and living by default. When your mind is in chaos, you're constantly reacting. But when your mind is under your command, you begin to respond strategically. You start choosing what deserves your attention and what doesn't. You stop being ruled by emotions and start being guided by principles. You become sharper, calmer, more deliberate, and that calmness becomes your power. There's something else most people don't realize. Your thoughts are seeds. What you think consistently will grow, whether you like it or not. If you plant thoughts of fear, you'll reap hesitation. If you plant doubt, you'll reap inconsistency. But if you plant belief, deep, unwavering belief in yourself and in your vision, you begin to walk with a different energy. You begin to make moves that align with success, not with survival. But belief doesn't come from speaking about confidence. It comes from building it quietly in the dark, through disciplined thought, focused attention, and the decision to keep going no matter how you feel. Every time you reject a negative thought and replace it with a powerful one, you are reprogramming your future. Every time you choose silence over reaction, you are claiming a deeper level of control. That's why it's not just about speaking less to others. It's about speaking better to yourself. Because the most important conversation you'll ever have is the one happening in your own mind. If that conversation is full of doubt, fear, or noise, then no amount of success outside will satisfy you. But if that conversation is full of clarity, conviction, and purpose, then no setback can break you. You become unstoppable, not because of your circumstances, but because of your mindset. You'll notice something else too. When your mind is disciplined, your energy changes. You walk into a room differently. You speak with more precision. You stop needing to prove yourself because you're grounded in who you are. And that kind of presence can't be faked. It can't be taught. It's developed in silence, in solitude, in the hours you spend building a relationship with your own mind. That's where vision is born, in silence, in thought, in deep reflection. You don't create a powerful future by rushing around talking about ideas you haven't even fully formed. You create it by sitting with those ideas, refining them, visualizing them so vividly that they begin to feel real. Because once your mind sees it clearly, your actions begin to align. And that alignment between thought, feeling, and action is what creates unstoppable momentum. But that kind of clarity doesn't come from talking more. It comes from thinking better. It comes from spending time with your own thoughts instead of running from them. It comes from removing distractions, silencing doubt, and asking yourself the real questions. What do I want? Who must I become to have it? What's standing in my way? And is it real, or is it just a thought I haven't challenged yet? The people who win big in life aren't the ones who always have the best plans. They're the ones who have mastery over their focus. They know what matters and what doesn't. They can hear chaos and still stay centered. They can face adversity and not be shaken. They don't waste time arguing, debating, or proving themselves. They've learned how to trust themselves. And that trust comes from the daily decision to feed their minds with power, not fear, not noise, not doubt. Everything you want begins in the mind. Every great achievement, every breakthrough, every moment of growth, it all starts with a single thought. And that thought, if nurtured in silence, becomes a force. But you must be willing to turn down the volume of the world long enough to hear your own vision clearly. You must be willing to speak less so you can think more. And once you begin to think with discipline, you begin to act with conviction. And once you act with conviction, consistently, there's nothing that can stop you. So speak less to the world and speak with more wisdom to yourself. Master your mind, and you will master your life.